Welcome to the webinar Programs for Small and Medium Scale Latin American Mining in a COVID-19 era. Welcome as you come in. For the ones that are just arriving, I want to give you some small practical announcements for this webinar. Please choose the language. At the bottom, you'll see language interpretation. Choose the Spanish language.
There in the banner, interpretation English. No se queden en el.
Do not stay in the off, otherwise you're going to hear also the interpreter. So please choose Spanish in the at the bottom in the interpretation button. I also want to tell you that this webinar is going to be recorded, and in a few days you will receive an email with the recording and also any source that we mention during the webinar, so that you know. Also, at the bottom in the banner, there is a hand, a little hand, like to raise your hand.
De preguntas y respuestas
That for the
cuando
Q&A session, whenever the panelists finish, you will be able to raise your hand. This is for government officials. Even though it is open for everyone, questions and answers are only open for government officials. So that official who has a question, you raise the hand and we'll give you the microphone. We can start now. Let Roberto start. So thank you.
Muchas gracias, Marina. Buenos días.
Thanks, Marina. Good morning to all of you. And okay, we're here in this webinar, Programs for Small and Medium Scale Latin American Mining in a COVID-19 era, organized in a joint way, the Ministry of Mining of the Americas and the Intergovernmental Forum about mining minerals, metals, and sustainable development, IGF, which are two organizations that are promoting the link between countries to exchange experiences and practices that may contribute to a sustainable development. Besides, for this organization, we've had the support of the Latin American Agency of Mining. And during 2020, governments have designed and applied programs to rule that important activity, which is small and medium mining in metals as well as in non-metals, minerals, rocks. So we'll share with you in this opportunity the experiences of the governments of Argentina and of Colombia, which will present to us the programs and support instruments and promotion tools that they have or instruments that they have. In order to start this activity, Marina Reed from IGF will share with you the results of the IGF survey. It's a global artisanal and small scale mining, a small scale mining at a global scale. So go ahead, Marina, with your presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Stacy. If you want to go to the next slide. Exactly. So before we start, I want to tell you, let you know that in October 20 to the 22nd, there is the annual IDF meeting. It's open and free for those who have asked. It's going to be about mining and COVID from crisis to sustainability. It's going to be a 3 days event in which there are going to be several such sessions in different subjects related to COVID. We'd like to invite you to participate. And in relation to this webinar, there is a specific session about artisanal and small-scale mining. Stacy, next.
Entonces, muy cortito les voy a
So
presentar.
very quickly, I'm going to show you the results of the survey. We wanted to know what the challenges and opportunities for artisanal and small-scale mining was in COVID times. This answer was given by or was sent by the governments that are members of the IGF. Stacy. before anything, we asked what were the challenges that the MAPI um, is challenged by COVID. I think it's small MAPI, small medium mining. Um, in one of the greatest challenges to continue doing artisanal mining in small scale, and a lot of miners, not to say all of them, are officially closed. The mining projects are closed, and the loss of employment as well as many other effects on the economy. That's one of the great problems. Restrictions to imports of equipment and inputs, and also the exporting of products for miners is becoming a real problem, a specific problem. And in those countries where there was illegal activity, basically governments are noticing that there is an increase. We also asked them if these challenges were different from the ones that the informal economy is facing in general. That means outside the artisanal and small scale mining. Uh, the vast majority said no. However, those who said yes mentioned that specifically the MAPI problems are that mines are in very remote areas and lack of financial resources. Now, in some governments, there is lack of financial resources to be able to access these mines and to provide them with support. And also, as in general, in the countries, these are very poor people, very poor communities, and they're subject to the risk of going underground and being infected with COVID. Besides some of the issues of low prices, now prices are even worse. And the second question was if governments were suspending programs of MAPI, most people said no, but those who did suspend, they suspended training. And for instance, those countries who had biometric registry or record, that's giving problems for formalization. We've asked if the government has given specific support about COVID. Many said no. However, those who said yes were providing awareness raising courses for COVID and international laws and financial and food aid also. The other question was if their specific government was offering a support, a new support, or if it is going to support, provide a new and continued support for MAPI. We want to know if they were cutting all kinds of support or if, luckily, they say that mostly yes. So that's a joy. And those who will offer are going to offer training in environmental practices of closure and trade support. There is trade information given to miners and also support for organization of trade unions and associations. And in order to start to open for new licensees, because of COVID, many of them are having issues to start because of funding issues, financing issues, more tax exemptions, and central banks are also buying gold. These support programs in general are not differentiated. This is worth, we've asked if they are differentiated between formal and informal mining, and they're just giving it to everyone. And finally, two more questions were, what were the challenges of a MAPI sector for the next 6 to 12 months? For government specifically, mobility restrictions, let's say to get to the places, they've reduced the budgets, as we were saying, an increase in the illegal activity, and as how they're going to approach this challenge. And what I had mentioned, the interruption of training produces a regression in formalization programs that government already has or governments already had. And particularly miners, the great problems are in a reduction of production, specifically because of commercialization or trading, because of lack of exporting, and because there's also been fraud if they have to sell at a lower price. There's a lower funding to the ones that we had. There's a lower funding to the MAPI sector, and parents are going through issues that one of the two parents have to be taking care of the children because children are not going to school anymore. The other question is what needs to happen so that governments can approach those challenges? To share with you is they said there has to be higher support. Next, Stacy. It's right there. I'm sorry. What I was mentioning, it's in the part of challenges. And the last question is the one that's in the right hand side. What must happen so that governments can approach these challenges? And the answer was to provide more support and incentives to reopen mines in a safe way with corresponding equipment, services, higher funding or financing, and to see how the scheme of the purchase of minerals is to avoid any frauds. And they've mentioned technology or IT. The technology of drones is now very common for supervision in those places where mines are very remote, and as there are mobility restrictions, technology may help a lot. Supervise specifically trading because or to avoid frauds in the chain, and finally a higher budget. By this, I want to thank you. I don't want to take any more time from Colombia's and Argentina's presentations because they have the most important part for the webinar. We'll like to wait for you. We'll expect you in the annual 2020 IGF meeting.
Gracias, Marina.
Thank you, Marina.
Siguiendo con
Okay,
con
going on with the agenda,
la directora de
the
formalización minera de
chief of mining
Colombia,
formalization in Colombia,
Sandra Sandoval
Sandra
Valderrama,
Sandoval Valderrama,
hará ahora su
will
presentación.
make her presentation now.
Sandra, por favor.
Sandra, please. Hi, thank you, Roberto. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here with me and to be able to help me share this space and to share this space. These spaces are important to share experiences and to be able to align ourselves for the sake of making that small mining and of medium scale mining. And I'm also including here the artisanal mining in Colombia, which is called subsistence mining. We can put the best possible conditions. I'm going to split this presentation. I would like to thank you, Marina, if you can let me know when I'm close to finish, in three great axes. The first one is a little bit to put you into context on how we're doing in mining activity in medium and small scale mining in Colombia. Part of the agreement when we were preparing this was that we are going to focus on minerals that are not from ours or from gold, which is the one of highest incidence in Latin America, and knowing that there are some specificities in this sector, and there are some countries that are present here about that. The issue is how we're seeing these challenges in Colombia, understanding that there are some difficulties, that we have some aspirations, as I said at the beginning, of getting the best possible mining operators to irrigate the benefits in the region. We have great challenges there. We're trying to think on how to approach them. We'll share that with you. And finally, we'll ground on how we are reacting in regards to that situation that came up because of a pandemic. And I feel very identified with what Marina just showed, Stacy. Okay, so here I want to tell you that Colombia is a country where small and medium scale mining is the main thing, is the core. So in in the country of the middle, we're gonna see that just 10% corresponds to large mining. 34% of mining titles in Colombia are medium mining and 24 medium scale. And additionally, we are working with a group of people who are comparable to artisanal mining, which in Colombia we call it subsistence mining, where we have more than 100,000 people, and they dedicate in a great proportion in gold mining, but we also have people who dedicate to the extraction of construction material. So additionally, we are very diverse in terms of production. So the vast majority of those titles are in construction material. The second great proportion we find obviously in metal minerals, especially gold, but we also have coal and other minerals, agricultural minerals as phosphoric rock. And when we debate a lot about a sector, we forget about the other sectors. And that's the great purpose that we have here with Secretary Hensel or Jensel of broadening the discussion of mining in Latin America. And finally, obviously, when we see the contribution of mining from the GDP point of view, large mining has a great proportion. In our case, it's coal, thermal coal, but ourselves from the Formalization Directorate, we're also encouraging the value of small and medium mining, which are not necessarily the large generators of that richness in royalties, but it has great impacts in the territories where it operates because there are large generators and there are people from the region, people who are developing that activity in the region. Stacy. So here a little bit what I was telling you, that value that we studied. If we see it in a ratio of GDP, obviously large mining is the great bet. But when we start to do or to zoom in and we see how the territories are distributed, they have great impacts, and we start to see that there is a great proportion of employments that are being generated because of that small and medium mining. And it's there where from a mining formalization directorate, we have the great challenge of increasing the standards to have a higher impact in the territory. Stacy. So with that landscape on how the mining activity in Colombia is, this government has proposed itself to work in three great axes, and we're calling it the mining transformation because I think we at some point are facing challenges on how much mining is accepted in the territories and how it is performed. So this government proposed itself in the mining transformation vision. We have a great percentage of people dedicated to the activity, but they're not doing it in the best conditions, and in some territories, it's been subject or object of a great resistance. And we started three work axes. The first one is institutional strengthening. Institutional strengthening in terms of what we need to have as public entities in order to provide with a better service, in order to be more efficient so that the mining operators can have some stable conditions and that allow them to grow. Second axis is legality and encouragement. There, I'm going to focus most part of my conversation, and it is we strengthen ourselves, we provide them with the best possible services, we generate a legal frame that fills some gaps, but we need people who dedicate to mining activity understand that they need to do it legally and they need to have some aspirations to always become the best mining operator no matter what scale they are at. We all have the possibility here. And finally, we talk about diversification because the country is also facing the challenge in terms of GDP that it needs to de-coal, it needs to get rid of coal at some point, of the dependence on coal in mining, and to allow that other potential that's right there to grow and to generate higher income or revenues for the national budget. So those are our three large axes or fronts of work. And in the first one, as I was telling you, we start with being aware that the public sector, which is the one granting the rights, has to be more efficient. It has to respond in a timely manner to any paperwork of those people who want to do their activities in the frame of legality. And the second is we started to incorporate a differentiated treatment for small mining and medium mining because we had identified that there were some revenues gaps. We were demanding them to be legal, but there were some access barriers that avoided them from getting to that point. And there, the international cooperation, especially from the United States and from Switzerland, helped us in the past to identify where those gaps were. And based on that, we started to design some regulatory instruments that are not going to be an issue, a barrier as in the past, to care for formalization processes in a defined time. Here we're going to leave a differentiating door so that small miners can access to legality in a better way and to provide them with some support so that they can actually grow. Second, an institutional strengthening in terms of transparency. Colombian mining cadastry has been changing. There's a new technological platform which is called Ana Minería, and any person will be able to understand what they have in the territories, and in terms of legal mining or non-legal mining. And besides, we are in a process in which any miner who wants to access to the rights, they have the chance of doing it in a faster way. We need to take advantage of technology. And COVID, I think, put some more pressure to advance, to progress. Third point, you were mentioning access to funding so that people can grow. And we are facing a great challenge in Colombia. Even miners dedicated to coal, to construction materials, and others are having difficulties to access financial services. And their pandemics showed it even more clearly. Before, there was more focus on traders, but now they had to find other sources, and those sources are not that available. So they were making a great effort. There is a cross-institutional team, not only from the Ministry of Mines, but with other entities working on a financial inclusion strategy. And also, if we want to have the best operators, we need to set some parameters, some standards, and we're working on what kinds of standards are those that we need to establish in Colombia to guide us for the assistance to those small and medium miners, so that they can improve. Stacy. In additional, we are with royalties. We're talking about royalties. Colombia just finished its reform to the general royalty system. What for? So that people also start to do the relationship of a mining activity with the benefits that it will bring for the region. And now, from the royalties resources that are generated, before producing regions only received 11%, but now we increase that ratio so that they receive more, and that way they can invest in developments and they can relay their mining activity in the territory with the benefit that it brings for the community itself. Besides, we want to be a lever so that those poor municipalities, mining activity needs to irrigate a benefit for most vulnerable populations or people. We need to leverage the regional development in services and utilities, and royalties are an important source of that. For that, we need to lever also science and technology, and obviously all of you know the peace treaty process, or in which that Colombia is going through, and what it means in terms of the need of resources. And royalties are also a source of for that. We're helping environmental authorities so that they strengthen the protection of the environment. But finally, we made it so that royalties can become a source to leverage formalization processes. There's not enough budget when you have such a big gaps, and you need to start to encourage the mining formalization. But royalties themselves are going to allow us to have a source of funding for that purpose. Stacy. And in the legality and encouragement access, which is my area of specialty, we have great challenges in legality or legality. There are many people in Colombia performing the mining activities in an illegal way or outside of a legality framework. And there we decided to generate some tools in terms of seeing the gaps that avoided those small miners to become legal, and not only in mining but also in environmental issues, because we understand that mining illegality has two legs. You need to have the mining permission, but you need to also have the environmental permission. Why? Because mining activity has some impacts. So we facilitate, we make their lives easier so that they can access, we join them in the process, we assist them in the process, but we need them to do it within that legality framework. And we set ourselves a goal, 27,000 new people working in legality at the end of this government period. It's a great challenge in which we've been working a lot on. And today, with the tools that the regulatory framework has, we count that there are 10,000 people who started that process. We're awarding legality. We have the challenge of not letting them giving up or give up. And there, we're going to tell you, once they're legal, you need to provide them with the assistance. And we're thinking of a new mining encouragement model. And here, I'm just going to mention that because later on I'm going to go deeper into that. And besides those subsistence miners that you saw that there are more than 100,000 people, We are working on improving the biometric registration of records that Marina mentioned, on how we generate that those traceability relations of minerals and trade to avoid people who are not suitable get engaged involved, people who are not desirable in the process, or illegal people. And obviously there are some people who, in spite of all these efforts that we're making, want to keep themselves in the illegal extraction of minerals. And we just approved a deed in the Congress where the control measures and sanction measures are established for those people who want to keep themselves in that side of the business. Stacy, 5 minutes, Sandra, to finish. Thank you. So, okay, that way, I'm going to start to talk about legality. Of course, we're making an effort there, but we do not want to lose the direction, the north on what kinds of mining activities we want in Colombia. And we started a program called Minero Cinco, Miner 5. We're making the effort here. We invite them, we support them, but the mining activity has to be legal. That's the one generating progress in the country. Second, it has to do with a business vision. Mining, no matter what scale it is, needs to have a business mindset. So it needs to generate income for those who perform it, to develop it. After covering all the costs, no matter what scale it is, I insist. And besides, it needs to have a vision of scaling and of growing, because we all want that kind of progress. They have to be, it has to be responsible. And responsibility here has focused on COVID, where we've had a set of large accidents, huge accidents in coal mining. That means we cannot perform an activity without being responsible, because we're talking about a risky activity, as in some minerals is higher than in other minerals, and we're playing with the lives of people. We need to generate formal work, formal employment to comply with all the environmental norms. We need to be including, we're part of a territory, and we need to generate impact in the territories where we develop the mining. And it has to be reliable, it has to be transparent, it needs to have some communication channels with different stakeholders it relates to. Stacy. And here, we're thinking on the COVID model. And I'm saying here, budget was based on an issue of the national budget of other resources, very in terms of assistance. Let me help you. Very focused on a population group, which is small mining in extraction stage. And but we need all the chain to be good. They all need help at different times. Not only the miner, but also how it develops, it performs its operation in the best conditions, how the processing is done, and how it accesses the best trade markets for better prices. And we established 5 strategic lines. And besides, we're thinking that there are many operators on the way that need those services. We need to articulate that and join efforts to have that aspiration, so they can have a door of access from their territories. We're doing it from a national government for everyone at the same time. And obviously, we are encouraging financial activities with a second tier, or a tier two bank, which is called Finagro tier bank. And in regards to COVID, I want to tell you, Marina, that Colombia was a sector that was never excluded. It always had a chance of working. The issue is we were all unprepared. We needed to prepare, and that put on the table that we did not have resources, that we do not have the same capabilities. We were all learning on the way, and it was difficult to adapt. Nonetheless, we always were clear that the mining activity in Colombia is a source of financing, and it's key for the reactivation of the national economy. And it also showed the need of having a better relationship. During the pandemic, there was a high resistance. That means the resistance to mining activity was exacerbated in the territory. And besides, we found that we needed to be stronger in information systems as well. and I was mentioning in having a higher coverage and also in having better tax practice or fiscalization practices. And there, as what Marina said, we're working on some IT uh, tools that allow us to access those territories that sometimes are not accessible for different reasons, and to exercise a better control and to see what the best practices are. And obviously, reference financial inclusion. It existed before, but what COVID did was to put it in a higher ranking, Stacy. And with that landscape, we started. We had some difficulties. We generated some aid for small miners and subsistence miners. We gave them some tools. We generated some protocols with the help of the international cooperation present in Colombia for small miners and for subsistence miners. But here we're in a different landscape. Everything, all sectors are being reactivated and there are opportunities. So we have construction materials. The country has a construction plan of 500,000 formal houses and 12 million square meters in non-residential projects. Besides, we're activating everything regarding road infrastructure in what we call here 5G roads, but also tertiary roads, which besides impact the competitiveness of mining activities in the metro of Bogota. So there is a huge opportunity for miner construction material miners. Now, the agricultural sector, we have some good sources of phosphoric rock. The agricultural sector is important, and the government is established a contingency plan with 35,000 million pesos for the purchase of agricultural inputs for small producers. So there's a great opportunity there in terms of those minerals that impact the agricultural inputs and the steel industry. The coal from the center of a country, in its in its vast majority, is coke, is coke. So that is being um, commercialized. We hope that coal exportations grow in a 12% uh, in 2020. So we have great opportunities that can pull mining in small and medium scale mining in Colombia. We're trying to see how we can concatenate that. Stacy, in that way, we're strengthening speed up of paperwork. I insist. Part of the gap that we had is that we had not been efficient in terms of attention and in a timely manner. Second, strengthening small mining and differentiated treatments. Second, Marina said it, traceability and responsible buyers. There is an initiative called Carbon Colombia, Coal Colombia. I join it with that potential that we have in coal, but we need fair prices and we need traceability. Buyers here are vital to help us encourage good practices. We've had the last 4 months we've had very serious accidents in coal mining. Why? Because people are not complying with the standards, even if it's even being legal mining, and that's very scary. And that's why we do not only talk about control, but we talk about economic incentives that can be generated with a good traceability chain and with the commitment of buyers of buying coal in a legal and formal way. We also have, as I said, the financial inclusion strategy and great efforts trying to materialize some opportunities and actions immediately, but that's a larger work because we need to generate reliability, trust in the sector. Trust. We're working in competitiveness of coal. We're all facing the same challenges of climate change, but we need a way of reconciling the situation in which we still have the minerals. We need to be better in clean technologies, not to lose those opportunities or miss those opportunities, but also to think on where we want to go whenever this has to decrease its level or to disappear in terms of that nothing else can be done. We have an issue of paramos, Moors in Colombia. Technical assistance, is what I said. More than technical assistance is how we can charge our batteries, recharge our batteries to assist our miners. All the economy have been affected by public budget. Every time there's lower and lower budget, so we need to be creative. And we need to generate partnerships to support these miners, especially in mining planning and mining safety, which are the immediate challenges. And obviously, to see that idea of mining encouragement model that we're thinking of, where we all contribute, we can materialize it. And in this second semester and the first semester of next year is where we have the test, and the Inter-American Development Bank will be a great partner on that. That's pretty much everything that I have wanted to share with you, and thank you very much.
Gracias, señora directora de formalización
Thank
minera.
you,
Y a
Mrs.
continuación
Chief of Mining
tenemos
Formalization.
la
And
presentación
next, we're going to have the
del
presentation
secretario de Minería de la República
of the
Argentina,
Mining
el
Secretary
doctor
from the
Alberto Hensel.
Republic of Argentina, Dr.
Un momento,
Roberto
por favor.
Hensel. Dr. Hensel, please
Antes de
go
que
ahead.
hable el doctor
One
Hensel,
second,
para los que
before
acaban de
Dr.
entrar,
Hensel
por
or
favor, abajo en
talks, for
interpretación,
those who just
pónganse en
entered,
español.
in the at the
The
bottom,
ones that speak
in
English, just go to
where it
the
says
border down there and select
interpretation, just
English,
click
please.
there.
Do not stay in the middle. No se queden en el medio, en el off. Tienen que elegir un idioma o el otro.
Gracias, Marina,
Bueno,
por la
muchas gracias,
Bueno,
Roberto.
okay, thank you very much, Roberto.
Muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for this invitation to participate on this online CAMMA lecture and to share, of course, with Sandra Sandoval this panel. I want to take advantage of this opportunity also to express the acknowledgement and to the support that we've received all this time since we met in Canada and the opportunity of celebrating CEPIDAC IGF. Marina, thank you very much because we are working with an important support from IGF for the development of economic and financial models that we can apply
Las inversiones económicas
to
mineras
the
en la
reactivation of economic investments in Argentina and Latin America. So thank you very much for this environment, this opportunity that allows us to share experiences of each one of the countries related to mining. And from that point of view, I have to tell you that we have a comprehensive view of mining because Argentina is very diverse and we have a huge potential in terms of geology and mining. And obviously, this includes large scale mining, medium and small scale mining, and artisanal mining. For us, in our policies, we have in mind precisely that reality. Because in the 23 Argentinian states or provinces, we have mining resources, of course, from different, some of them are linked to metal mining and to non-mining, non-metal mining. What am I going to do? I'm going to give you a small introduction, an overview on how the reality of Argentina is, very briefly, and then what is it that small and medium scale mining means, and finally, what it meant for us having to go through the pandemic, what measures we took around that, and what are we thinking, of course, for the future. Argentina, of course, has an emerging development of metal mining. It's based essentially on gold, silver, and also we have advanced stage in projects of copper, which can open a new stage, a new era of copper in Argentina. And then, of course, we're part of the lithium triangle. We have two operations currently. There is a construction operation, and of course, a huge amount of projects around the interest that this mine, this mineral awakes. This related essentially to the energy transition of our mobility. So there are 17 projects in advanced and feasibility um, stage. And obviously, in regards to non-metal mining, which is precisely there where we have the highest expression of what medium and small mining means. By 2019, we had registered 639 SMEs, which generate 3,760 employment. These enterprises have a specific characteristic, which in general is about family companies, and they transfer a know-how from one generation to another with very frank characteristics from a historical point of view, as well as a cultural point of view. And of course, they also generate likewise, as well as metal mining, they generate export opportunities beyond the fact that there are, as what Sandra was saying, a great difference between metal and non-metal mining. But not because of that, we stop considering the huge impact that it has in internal economy as well as in the linking to the external market or foreign market, reporting benefits to each one of the Argentinian provinces. Because let's remember that Argentina is a federal country where resources belong to the provinces, and what we do between provinces and nation is to co-help and contribute in this side of a mining that includes exactly all their expressions. Stacy, okay, how do SMEs participate in the development of our country? I said that there was mining in the different Argentinian provinces, and these SMEs contribute with minerals for construction, for industry, for rocks and agricultural um, minerals. We're talking about sand, we're talking about cuttings for plaster, um, concrete, and other materials that are used in the industry of ceramics, abrasive, um, corrective, melting. Sandra was also mentioning about that. And granites, marble, and other kinds of stones and correctors of floors, sulfates, among others. Stacy, in this graph, we clearly see how the participation of each of these Argentinian SMEs is from the 23 provinces, the total value of production on rocks and industrial minerals. We could split them in three groups. The most important group, most meaningful group, obviously, is made up by the province of Buenos Aires, Cordoba, and Entre Rios. This is a second group with San Juan, Catamarca, and San Luis, and a third group where, as you may appreciate it, its level is its levels of participations or their levels of participations are lower, and most of all of this is that production has as a target the internal domestic market, as it is clearly stated there, not 91% to domestic market and just 9% to the export market, and being its main um, characters of this export, Stacy, the in exports of rocks and industrial minerals, essentially we have where in the last 20 years, where lime has been multiplied by five in terms of lime. 96.5% of those exports go with destination Chile. And of course, we have another type of offer, Stacy, that are related to these rocks and industrial minerals. Is with the rhodochrosite stone, the marble that we see applied here in important works of our country, and that we pretend also that at some point are present in many works around all the continents or throughout the continents, because I know that we have great possibilities of doing it. Now, we could say that this is part of how it is structured and how it works, how the sector works in the SMEs um, work in Argentina. This is pretty much like an overview around what Sandra was saying. We have and we're convinced, and that's why we're working right now here in a strategic plan for the mining development in Argentina for the next 30 years, from where we're working on construction and a short vision of mining, and that we understand that it must be an inclusive mining, an integrated mining, a competitive mining, and sustainable. And obviously, this must be our guide, our horizon, applicable to all kinds of mining, which can be developed and that is developed in our country. Now, Stacy, we come across obviously a complex, difficult scenario which has affected all the economies in different scales, we could say it that way, different with a different impact, but all of them have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, mining SMEs are not away from that. And the first thing that was done, as what it was done everywhere, was to decree the social isolation, preventing of mandatory isolation. That was immediately in March. And we also started to work immediately to, at some points, introduce within the essential activities, mining, and especially small and medium scale mining, that it, it's true that they can work. Its demand has been affected a lot. And on April 3rd, in short time, we could declare it as an essential activity because we perfectly know that once all protocols were generated in order to preserve the health of workers and of all these families that are part of these SMEs, but those families needed to continue to work because, and besides, this obliged us from a state point of view to generate some tools to be able to assist them. So what was the first consequence with this crazy situation that happened because of the pandemic? The interruption of a payment chain, the restriction of workers, and a very acute drop of construction because I was saying recently that it is essentially linked to the small and medium mining in Argentina is related to construction, and you can appreciate in this graph that it had some variations already, but the drop is very exponential starting from March of the current year, Stacy. So I was telling you, the first thing that we did was immediately to start a work and to encouraging protocols with prevention recommendations to the mining sector in general. We did it working, we did it along with the Ministry of Health of the country, and of course all stakeholders of this sector. And besides, we started a whole process to be able to include a program that was launched by the government, Stacy, which is called the Assistance to Worker Production Program, which essentially targets or aims to guarantee production and work, being the state the one contributing with 50% of salaries, of course, of employees of these entrepreneurships, of these SMEs, of these small and medium enterprises. And in that case, to those 613 SMEs is a little bit more than 13,000 workers. And as I was saying at the beginning, that's It's showing there the economic help that was given, and we could say that pretty much all the sector of mini enterprises or and SMEs were all included within this program of assistance to work and production, which the government try to continue sustaining and will pretend and is pretending to continue to sustain up until the situation is overcome, situation of pandemic. Stacy, but besides, this obliged us because we also need to recognize something. In general, there were many specific programs that could care for the situation of small and medium mining represented by these SMEs in a family nature and that were spread around our territory or all over our territory. We needed to be in charge of the, sec- we at the secretariat, we needed to be in charge of the situation because me, who's talking to you, I'm located inside the country where there's small mining, non-metal mining, and of course I know, therefore, deeply the situation of that sector, and it seemed to me that we needed to generate some tools that was intended to support the recovery development processes, process of broadening and of generating opportunities. So we launched a first financing program, funding program, in partnership with the Small and Medium Enterprises Secretariat and also with entrepreneurs and small SME chambers, which which are in charge of working capital and a rate for of loans for improvement, innovation, and importing in such a way that we could generate more opportunities for SMEs. And besides, there is another program which is the one of spontaneous demand that we've worked with the geologic mining service in Argentina to work in studies of geological potential and value added in the source. And another one is support to export. We've done that with the Argentinian, in partnership with the Argentinian Agency for Investments and foreign trade or international trade, and to take advantage of that huge resource generated by SMEs. And besides, we launched another program, which is the Social Mining Plan, which aims to assist those most vulnerable sectors in the small and medium scale mining in Argentina, Stacy. But at the same time, besides this program, which are specific from the mining secretariat in partnership with other agencies, and we've been able to generate or empower, we could say, resources and efforts, and that SMEs or mining SMEs have as a first time a funding system for the technical assistance, technical and financial assistance, in other words. And uh, well, besides that, we worked in the sense of being able to generate the participation or what naturally is given like that because whenever construction is reactivated, immediately great part of that expression of small and medium scale mining is activated, and that's why we're generating from the orbit in general terms of Argentina, generated a plan called Argentina DAS, Argentina ASE in Spanish, which aims to generate 20,000 new work spots with small works in 2,300 municipalities of Argentina, or 2,300 municipalities, as what it was described before by me, with the small and medium scale mining has a role to comply, contributing with everything that those works demand. The procreate plan for the construction of houses, because as what I was saying in the beginning, small and medium mining is very related to this, and a public work national plan. And there's something that we should also work in the environment of CAMMA, and it is to seek for complementarity instruments because we, all the countries that are represented, have a lot to exchange, to interchange, and we have a lot to, at some point, contribute one another.
la demanda y
We
la
know the demand and the offer that each one of the countries has, and we just need to link ourselves to that reality of small Latin American small and medium scale mining, and that in that exchange, in that interchange, in that complementarity, we we are capable of generating better conditions for this genuine expression of mining in our countries. Thank you very much.
Bueno, muchas gracias, doctor Hensel. Marina.
Thanks, Dr. Hensel. Marina, please. Oh, it's okay. Thank you again. Also to thank Secretary Hensel and also Sandra. And going on with the last message of the secretary, we do expect this is an opportunity so that countries share and also generate more joint regional work, where CAMA has done an excellent job uh, in these years of joining you, and we ourselves from a global point of view, we're beloved, we're amazed to be able to assist you with CAMA. And I think webinars like this one, I'm saying on the list that there are people from all countries of the region. But this is an opportunity so that you get to know one another. Roberto, as well as myself, are beloved, are amazed to introduce you to any person you need to work in the regional arena. Now, that way, we're going to open the Q&A session. I'm sure that Stacy, I'm sure that you must have questions for the panelists. I'd like to invite you, would like to invite you to raise your hand or to request the participants the floor to ask questions. And we'll give you the chance of talking. Please, we'd like to ask for those government officials to be the ones asking questions. We're trying to, um, this is especially for them. Roberto, I know that you had some questions for the panelists. Meanwhile, there's a little hand there.
Todavía no. No, está bien, eran
No,
preguntas que
it's okay.
habíamos recibido
It's just
una
questions that we
de
had received. One of them for
ambos
both
oradores
speakers
es en función del
is
rol
around
clave que se
the
asigna a la
key
pequeña y
role
mediana minería
assigned to
en la
small and
reactivación
medium scale mining
de
in the
países.
economy reactivation of countries.
¿Cómo es la vinculación
How
y
is
la
that
percepción de la actividad en las comunidades
linking
aledañas
in the perception of the
al
activity in the
desarrollo de
surrounding
la
communities
pequeña y mediana
where
minería?
this small and medium scale mining is performed or developed?
Bueno, eh, me voy a anticipar a Sandra.
Well,
¿Puedo?
I'm going to take the floor first before Sandra. I don't know if it's okay, but I'm gonna do it.
Permite, Sandra, ¿sí o no?
If I may, Sandra. Sure,
En general
dear
debemos
Secretary.
reconocer que, por lo menos la
In
realidad de
general, we need
nuestro
to
país
recognize, well, at least the reality of our country is
es
that,
más, yo diría que como son
I mean, I would say that as
creadas la pequeña y mediana
small
minería,
and medium scale mining
eh,
are or is,
son,
they
están
are
muy cerca
they are
las
very
comunidades,
inside the communities,
como
very
si se ningún
involved
punto
with the communities. There
de conflicto
isn't any kinds of
la
conflict.
relación
There
se ve muy
aren't any kinds
buena,
of conflict.
la
The
gente
relationship is very
se
good.
siente muy
People
identificada
feel very
y
identified, well identified. I said it at the beginning that
esta pequeña y mediana
this
minería que
small
tenemos
and medium scale mining and artisanal
en
mining,
nuestro
at
país,
least in our
es un
country,
saber hacer que
is a
se
know-how
transfiere de
that's
generación
transferred
en
from one
generación
generation to
y
another,
están estrictamente
and
vinculadas a
they're
la
strictly
identidad
linked to the
de las
identity
comunidades.
of those
Así
communities.
que de ese punto de vista,
So from that point of view,
yo lo que sí creo es que
what
es
I
un
do
sector
believe
que
is that
requiere
it's
mucha
a sector
atención
that requires a lot of
y
attention, as what is being expressed clearly by Sandra. It has to be an important and permanent part of the agenda of governments because I think there is a huge potential there that still we're missing a lot. We're pending to do a lot, especially in financial and technical assistance and the inclusion of or incorporation of technology to be able to care more for the demand in the domestic market as well as in the international market. But it's not a mining that, from my point of view, generates any kind of conflict as what has been mentioned recently of uh, opposition from the communities where it is developed or performed. I agree with the secretary. The Colombian case, in regards to small and medium scale mining, there isn't an existence of conflict by the territories where it is developed. And as what the secretary said, and I said it in my presentation, people from a community are those who live there, are those who develop those activities or perform those activities. However, and I'm going to take the example of what's happened with COVID and fatal accidents because the four accidents that we've had in the coal mining have ended up with deaths, with losses. So it, it does make it explicit on what kind of mining activity it is. And it's expressed that different stakeholders of a territory in partnership with the national government to start to think and articulate. I'm a little bit local in the way I talk, I'm sorry. How we can support these people so that they can really achieve the expected standards because that's where revenues come from. That means it's not an activity of large mining that Colombia has had a great resistance to in territories where it is performed, different from small and medium mining. But yes, it's made us like that's why I'm saying that it was that COVID was like a catalyzer in many things. We all knew that we had to go there, that we needed to recognize that people from the communities are those who develop the activities, and that it is important for the revenues, for the income. There are regions where mining activity is the main economic source, and that's what they leave of or out of. COVID has showed the reality that we need to be in the best possible conditions, and it's called the attention to different stakeholders, different levels. From a national government, we have the responsibility of administering the mining resource, but it is done at the territories. We cannot do it disattached from a territorial entities, from environmental authorities. Colombia has a gives a great importance to environmental stakeholders or authorities and other stakeholders, the academia. So we need to support ourselves. It's not about resistance, but it is of a set of gaps. And luckily, I want to put it positively, COVID has made us go very quickly to organize ourselves and to make a greater effort and support them in a faster way and in a timely manner. We want to give the opportunity to Peru, to Ministry of Mines and Energy, Dr. Alberto Rojas, to ask. Good morning to all of you. I want to thank the organizers, the IGF, for such an important event, and especially to the representatives from Colombia and Argentina for their presentations that were extremely important. As you know from Peru, we also have a mining formalization process, small mining and artisanal mining, on course or ongoing, and I wanted to ask some questions, kind of kind of know the vision of each country in regards to these aspects, this interesting aspect. I would like to, at the beginning, to know from Argentina as well as from Colombia, if they have a national mining policy at small scale. In Peru, we call it small and artisanal mining scale. I would like to know if you have in mind or you have prioritized the aspect of having a policy, or if you already have a policy with a vision for the next years, for the upcoming years, and cross-sectorial. And we would like to know also if Sandra talked a lot about traceability, and that's something that is also important in Peru because traceability and knowing the stakeholders in the value chain in the trading of minerals is important because it also generating a reputational image that's very important for those who do things well. So we would like to know if there is a norm in Argentina as well as in Colombia that this mechanism is strengthening through a control and fiscalization. And finally, I would also like to know if there has any mechanisms been designed so that miners can formalize themselves, or those who are informal, or those who are formal stay in formality, encouraging those miners who want to become formal. Those questions. Thank you.
Secretario, ¿quiere que empiece?
Sandra,
Secretary,
Ok.
do you want me to start? Yes, go
no hay
ahead.
problema,
No problem.
está autorizada.
Muchas gracias. En el caso
Thank you.
de la política nacional
In the
para
case of a national policy for small-scale
tenemos una
mining,
política
we
minera
have a mining
y que está
policy
enfocada en esos ejes
that's
transversales
very
que
focused in
mencioné,
those transversal accesses that I mentioned at the beginning,
de legalidad y
institutional
gobierno,
portal of
de fiscalización,
legality,
y lo que
and
estamos haciendo
enforcement
es
and
que en
fiscalization.
esos
And what we're
diferentes
doing
ejes
is
que vamos
that in those
desarrollando en cada
different
uno de los ejes, estamos
issues that
haciendo
we're
una
developing in each of the
adecuación
accesses, we're
competencial para la
including a
política minera.
differentiated treatment for
No es para hacer algo
small-scale mining.
específico,
It's
porque
not to do
reactivate
anything
es uno
specifically,
más
because
del
I'm saying it's
universo
one more in the
de
universe
actividad minera que hay.
of mining activity existing
Lo
in
que tenemos
Colombia.
que generar son unas herramientas específicas y
We need to
diferenciadas para
generate some
atención a esas
specific and differentiated
particularidades,
tools that
pero no
care for
hacerlos
those
separados,
specificities,
porque son uno
but
más
not
del ecosistema
to make them
colombiano.
independent, because
Entonces,
they're one more in the mining
tenemos una
ecosystem.
política
So
de
if we have
yacimientos de carbón
a
que la estamos
coal
trabajando. Vemos el carbón en su integralidad.
guidelines
Vemos
policy that
cuál
we're
es la
working, we see
representación de la
coal
pequeña y mediana
as
minería.
a whole. We see
Vemos, por
the
ejemplo,
role of small
que
and
los puros
medium scale
recursos
mining. We
preferenciales
see how it
son
is. We have some differentiated
importantísimos
mechanisms, and those
para la
differentiated mechanisms are the ones that are being
diferenciarnos.
materialized today
Como
with
les
two
decía,
great accesses.
y ahí voy a
One of
pasar a
them,
la
as I was
tercera,
saying, and from there I'm going to go
la
to your
forma
third
de cómo los
question,
llevamos a
to
la
how
legalidad.
we take them
Y
to
la
legality or to
legalidad
legality. The
entendiéndolo en
comprehensive
términos
legality in terms of
del permiso
they need to
ambiental
have
y el
the mining
permiso
permission
ambiental,
and the
que son
environmental
unos grandes
permission.
retos que tenía
Those are the
Colombia
great challenges
y
that
muchos
Colombia
pequeños mineros
had.
por los
A lot of
requisitos que
small
tenemos en la
miners, because
normativa,
of the requirements that
no
we have
habían
in the
podido
regulations, they
cumplirlos.
hadn't been able to comply with them.
Entonces, con esta reforma en el
So
Plan
with this
Nacional de
reform in the
Desarrollo,
National Development
generamos ese
Plan,
mecanismo
we generated
permanente,
that
o sea,
permanent
una
mechanism.
puerta
That means
preferencial
it's a
a todos
preferential
aquellos
door for
participantes que
small
lleguen a la
scale
legalidad
miners
en el tema minero, sin
so that they
descuidar
can
dos
get to legality
importantes, que son tres.
without leaving
Uno
aside
es
important
vamos
issues.
a
I said
estar
is three.
flexibilizando absolutamente
One of them
nada.
is
¿Por qué?
the
Porque la vida humana está por
safety.
encima de todo.
Human
Dos,
life is
el
on top
tema
of anything,
ambiental.
of everything.
Hay que
Second, environmental
exigirle
part.
según
We need to
las garantías
demand
ambientales. Reconocemos sus
the
particularidades y sus estándares
fulfillment of
de salubridad,
environmental
pero
rules.
no
We
los
help them,
excluimos.
but we
Y
do not
tercero,
exempt them from
les daremos
complying with those
unas
uh,
compensaciones económicas,
regulations.
porque
And
este es un
third, they need to pay
recurso
with
que
the
es una
economic
inversión
compensations
que le
because it's
estamos
the
dando al
royalties,
pueblo, porque
because it's a
pagamos
resource
y
that
por tanto
belongs to the
se
nation. We're
pierde
giving
la
them a chance of
calidad de su
extracting
mineral
it, and
y
therefore they
además
will have to
los
pay the royalties
beneficiarios están en
or the
valoración. Pero
um,
sí, lo que hacemos
permission.
es, en cada uno de los ejes
But what
grandes,
we do there is in each one of the large
establecer
axes
tratamientos
is to
diferenciados
establish
para la
differentiated
legalidad.
treatments for
Y
small and medium
segundo,
scale
una
mining.
vez que una
And the
vez sea
second one
legal,
is that once
pues
it is legal,
obviamente ellos,
obviously
si son
they,
sujetos, y así
if
también
they're
nos quedó en el
subject,
Plan
and
Nacional
that's
de
how it was
Desarrollo,
stipulated in the
estos
National
pequeños
Development
mineros
Plan,
que entren
in
por
these
esa
small
puerta
miners that
preferencial
enter through
van
that
a recibir
preferential
dos
door
cosas:
of receiving two things.
asistencia técnica.
Technical
Es
assistance,
decir, nos
that means
comprometemos a que los
we
llevamos a la
commit
legalidad,
ourselves
pero no los
to
dejamos en la
take them to
legalidad y
legality,
hacer
but
un
we're not going to
esfuerzo
leave them
para que
alone.
crezcan hacia
We
su
need to make an
competencia.
effort so that they
Y
can
dos,
grow
le estamos
where we
llamando
want to. And
fiscalización
second,
gerencial.
we're
Es
calling
un
it
tema de no ser tan
differentiated
controladores,
fiscalization
sin
or
barajar
supervision,
las
not to
premisas
be
que
so
acabo de decir,
controlling
pero
without
sí tratar de
collapsing the
eludir el
premises
tema del
that I just
compromiso
mentioned,
asistencia
but
técnica.
providing
Es un
technical
tema
assistance
de yo lo controlo,
with
le ayudan a mejorar,
something about, okay, I control you, I can help you improve on how you do it, and I'm going to assist you and I'm going to enroute you. So I think by that I'm answering questions number one and three. And in regards to traceability in Colombia, like 8 years ago, in a national development plan law or bill, it was established the the need of registering. In order for me to be able to trade minerals in Colombia, I need to be subscribed in a registration that's managed by the National Mining Agency. It could be because I either have the power as an authorized mining extractor or because I only dedicate to trading. So I need to be registered. However, the registration is not enough. What we found and what we're incorporating in the illegal exploitation bill or extraction bill is that we need to oblige so that every transaction made is registered or subscribed in that registration. So it's not enough for me to subscribe as an extractor or trader and I have my RUCOM in Colombia, unique mineral trader record registration. But besides with this bill, we're seeking to subscribe, to register each of the movements that I have of a mineral. I am Sandra Sandoval as a trader, for example. I buy it from a extractor, a artisanal extractor. I need to register that, and that person buying it from me also will have to register that transaction. That's what we're betting for. But going to the mandatory part here or compulsory part here, we need to appeal to the voluntary part and to social control. I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't know how to call it, but that's pretty much what I'm appealing to in regards to the fact that buyers also need to be responsible. And even we as final consumers need to be responsible on what mineral we're buying because here we also have the chance of telling people, I only buy legal, I only buy formal things, and that becomes a better incentive. What has been proven in the chain is that whenever there is a demanding buyer, eh, and that demand, that demanding attitude will go backwards also to demand to the rest of the chain. And buyers are willing not only to buy fair prices, but also to award with some aids to make miners have every time better and better standards, to go a bit beyond. So I think in regards to traceability, that we had a tool, we're strengthening it with that bill, but we appeal a lot and we're working in that mindset that all stakeholders of the chain are responsible and it has to be voluntary and it should be an encouragement to be there. Secretary, thank you very much.
Muy bien. Bueno,
Well, Sandra, very
a
well.
ver, yo dije que
Okay, I said that
nuestro plan, ¿está bien?
our plan,
Y coincido con lo
and
que
I
decía
agree
Sandra
with
recién, hay
what
cosas
Sandra
que
was saying
a esta
recently.
altura uno
There
no
are things
puede
that right
por
now
defecto
we
dejar
can not under any
considerar y ser
aspect
absolutamente
stop
exigentes.
considering and being absolutely demanding.
Que
So when we
nuestra
said that our
guía
plan
como ejes
has as
rectores
guiding our
sostenibilidad.
axis
Y ahí estamos haciendo
sustainability,
referencia a la cuestión
we're referring there
ambiental.
to the environmental
Entonces,
part.
los estándares ambientales
So environmental
deben
standards
ser
have to
absolutamente
be
respetados,
absolutely
pero ¿qué
respected,
pasa? A veces los pequeños
but it turns out
y
that sometimes
medianos
small
productores,
and medium
bueno,
producers
deben ser de alguna manera acompañados.
must be at some
Entonces,
point
lo que
assisted.
hacemos es
So what we do
justamente
is
acompañarlos para que
to assist them so
lleguen
that
los
they
resultados para que
to
puedan
assist them
cumplir
from a
y
state so that they
avanzar
can
en esos
comply
estándares de
and
forma
achieve those
conjunta,
standards
tal como
to have
planteamos
the
que es lo que
environmental impact
coincide
reports
con
as
la calidad
corresponding,
ambiental, me parece que
that
es un
they can
punto
have the environmental
clave.
awareness. That's something
Lo
key.
otro también que agregaría
And the
es
other thing that I would also add is
también
that we've said it is
nosotros hemos establecido programas
we've
muy específicos en
established
materia de
very specific
asistencia
programs that
técnica y
have to do with
transferencia de
technical
tecnología,
assistance
es decir,
and to financial
acompañarlos en
assistance.
todo momento.
That means
Estamos haciendo también
supporting them at all
en el
times.
marco de un
And
programa
in the frame of
que estamos
a
desarrollando con
program
Naciones
that we're
Unidas
developing with the UN
de actualización de los
of
registros de
update of
productores mineros,
records of
además de
mining
los registros
producers,
de
and
zonas
besides
georreferenciados,
geo-referentiated systems, and besides, it complements the guidelines, the fiscalization guidelines that are used in each one of our provinces, where we know exactly where is the source of a mineral, how the whole process was, etc., etc. It, it it goes to that essentially, to assist them, to support them, to provide them, to help them manage, and also we work in the making up of boards or boards for the most vulnerable sectors, where we try to approach from the states in that assistance from a very broad vision, the reality, not only in the environmental part or economic part, but also in some social aspects that are very important, health, education, in such a way that, as I was saying at the beginning, this is approached from a very comprehensive approach because we're all aware that that artisanal or small and medium scale mining requires of a permanent care assistance from us because besides as they're part of the domestic and regional economy, it can also contribute to the country. So I would only add that to what Sandra just mentioned.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Tenemos dos preguntas más.
We have two more questions.
Una dice, durante la
One
situación del
says,
COVID,
during the
la
COVID-19
pequeña y mediana
situation,
minería ha
small and
sufrido
medium scale
seriamente
mining
de
has
demanda y con los
suffered
precios de commodities.
demand
¿Pueden los
problems
gobiernos de
and
Argentina
commodities
y
prices.
Colombia subsidios de
Did
precios para apoyar a
Argentina
estas
and
empresas?
Colombia governments have subsidized these companies in terms of that issue? I'm going to answer Central. Particularly, I have to say that no, no, we we haven't. We generated these other tools of being able to access credits or loans or the famous ATP support to worker production programs. But I have to say that in that sense, no, no subsidies um, for the drop of prices of community of commodities, and we can put that on the table. We can assess that because it could also be an interesting choice and a clear expression of support to a sector.
Después había otra pregunta de
Then there
Irene
was another
Vasilevsky
question from
que
Irene
si las
Vasilevsky.
iniciativas de los países
If initiatives
que se
from
planteen para
countries
apoyar el enfoque de género en la pequeña minería artesanal en
are
los países
proposed to
cercanos al
support the
género
gender
en el
focus in
contexto del
small and
COVID.
medium
Sandra,
scale
quiero
mining in
ya si
COVID,
quiere Sandra
Sandra,
abordar, digamos,
if
el
you want
enfoque de
to deep
género
dive
en
in
estos
that.
programas.
Is there a gender focus in this program? The mining and energy sector, we as Ministry of Mines and Energy, we're working in incorporating the gender focus. It's becoming part of DNA of each of our actions. It turns out that first we need to understand on what we were talking about, and there, with the support of some cooperations, some guidelines were generated for all the sector. And now, first, we are in a plan in which we need to understand people who develop specific actions. What it is about, we need to incorporate ourselves in each one of the or incorporate in each one of the actions and programs or strategies that we're developing. At this time, let's say that it's mentioned, but when we start to ground that, when we start to understand what it is about, and we try to incorporate it, we need to think it so that it really has an effective response. Really, the first punch that we have is that people understand that that is already part of a conversation, that it is a criteria that they need to have, decisions and actions developed. However, assuming and understanding that gender has to be included, and I understand it now as equal opportunities, men and women. We haven't gone to a broader gender discussion. In the sector, we find that at least they have to think about it and they have to you have to reflect on that. Now we comply with that role. How do we make actions really effective and appropriate? What we're doing there is to start by having a classified information in terms of female and male, at least to know what are the dimensions, and second, where we already have it, to start to identify what would allow us to advance in terms of uh, providing equal opportunities inside the sector, but also of external things to the mining operation, but that do influence women who are within the operations. All of this just to tell you, we are already within our policy is an essential factor. We have some guidelines of the mining and energy sector. We are now working into taking specific actions, concrete actions, starting by the sizing or visible, making women visible in the figures that we have to start to take specific actions.
En el caso particular
In the specific case of
de Argentina,
Argentina,
eh, la Secretaría de Minería, a partir de esta gestión,
mining secretariat from this
es el
management
primer organismo
is the first
del gobierno
body
argentino que
of the
se
Argentinian
suma
government
a la
that
iniciativa de
has
género
joined the
del
gender
Banco
initiative
Interamericano de Desarrollo
from the
y
Inter-American Development Bank,
en
and we are
implementación
in the stage of
trabajo
implementation
conjunto
in a
entre
joint way between
organizaciones,
enterprises,
sindicato y gobierno.
union, and government, or unions and government.
Muchas gracias
Thank you very
por
much
las respuestas. Tenemos
for
una
your
pregunta
answers.
de
We
Canadá,
have a question
dice
from
Tomás
Canada.
Cabanillas.
Thomas
Dice,
Cabanilla
para
says,
explorar opciones
in
de
the
impulso
context of
económico a
exploring
través de obras de
options of
construcción
economic
en el
encouragement
gobierno,
or stimuli
¿consideran métodos
through
de
infrastructure and
construcción más
house
rápidos que incorporen una
work,
mayor utilización
are you
de
considering
recursos
on
y otros
faster
agregados, posibles resultando
possibilities,
oportunidades de demanda adicional y
giving
o valor
opportunities of
agregado
additional
para las
demand and of
empresas?
added value for SMEs? Good question. I want to know if there are some faster construction methods. I will take it and I'll look it up. I'll go ahead and do check on that because it could be a trigger to do the concatenation faster. But I don't have an answer in terms of if there are faster construction methods to be able to incorporate those minerals into these large construction plants that we have in Colombia.
Como yo
As I
mencionara durante la
mentioned
exposición,
during my presentation,
dije que la mayoría de
I
las,
said that most,
yo diría prácticamente todas,
I would say pretty much all of them, all the
MIPYMES mineras
SMEs
están
min,
vinculadas
mining
de forma
SMEs are
fuerte,
linked
en
to or
mayor porcentaje a la
contribute
construcción.
in a higher
Con
percentage
lo cual lo más
to
importante
construction, in a
para
high percentage.
nosotros es
So
que
the most
el
important thing for
Estado
us is that the
argentino ha lanzado
Argentinian state
un ambicioso
has
plan
launched an
de
ambitious
viviendas
housing plan.
Además mostré un cuadro que
Besides, I showed a
definió la
chart
caída de
on
la
how
construcción
the drop of
en las
construction
MIPYMES, ¿no? Así
influenced
que
in the SMEs.
yo
So
diría que con que se reactive
I
la
would say that
construcción,
by
nosotros volveremos
reactivating
a tener una
construction, we believe that we are
enorme
generating
ventana de
a
oportunidad
huge window of
para el
opportunities
sector de
for
la
this
minería,
sector of mining
que de hecho demanda
that indeed
metales,
demands
hierro, rocas de
metals,
aplicación,
iron,
yeso,
rock,
cemento, todo. Ahora bien,
plaster,
no hemos hecho
cement,
nosotros un balance
everything. So we haven't made a
porque se ha
balance in a sense
expresado
as
en
it's
esa
been
pregunta,
expressed in that question.
pero quiero
But
decirles que la construcción es el gran
I want to
motorizador
tell you that
de
the
que el
construction
país
is a
genere
great
empleo.
booster of small and medium scale mining in
Perfecto.
Argentina. Perfect.
Tenemos una pregunta,
We
tenemos dos
have
manos
we have
levantadas.
two hands
Dice
raised. We're gonna
Alberto
give
ya ha
the
preguntado,
floor.
vamos a darle primero
Alberto has asked already, so we're gonna give the floor first
la opción
to
de hablar a Jorge Chamot.
Jorge Chamot.
Jorge.
Ok. Sí, gracias, Marina.
Okay,
Yo
thank you,
tengo una
Marina.
pregunta
I have a
relacionada
question related
a
to
lo que Sandra
what Sandra mentioned or
sobre el
about
aumento de la, hasta
The increase of up to some point illegality of artisanal and small mining activities. In Connex, we've seen that this is a large issue in other regions of the world. In other regions of the world, it would seem like by what Alberto mentioned, it's not so in Argentina. However, as what you said in the case of Colombia, it will seem like yes, it happens that it happened because of COVID. There has been an increase on on illegality or illegal practice in regards to artisanal and small scale mining, by which it would then mean that there has been a challenge. So that's a question, right? Is there has there been a regression, like a regression in the programs? My question is because that will help so that in other countries where not only illegal activities have increased, but also criminality has increased, and the artisanal and small scale mining has increased by the increase of price of metals. In the specific case of gold, which is maybe what most activity has in the um, illegal activities in mining. So much that there has been serious security problems. What is being done in Colombia in regards to that? First, is there a problem of criminality, and if measures are being taken, because this is an issue of a lot of importance, maybe for some of those who are talking. Hi, evidently there is illegality or illegal practice. And here I would like to, because you use words as illegality, criminality, or criminality. So yes, I think the fact that there is illegality or the programs that at different times governments have established to help minors can operate within a legality framework shows that it is not a problem of today. And there have been some attempts to solve it with some deficiencies, of course, with some weaknesses for different reasons that I don't want to express here. Just to tell you, yes, there are minors who develop their activities within illegality, and those who do not have mining permissions or environmental permissions for that or permits for that, that do not make them criminals. I want to clarify something here. Understanding criminality, when these activities help for the funding of armed groups, which happens in Colombia. So yes, there has always been illegality. We've been working on that. It's not that we're having a complex of going or skipping or underestimating what other governments have done, but it's to identify where there are some weaknesses in terms of mechanisms or structural responses that we should put on the table, so that really these miners can find a space where to work in legality, and we're doing it. Obviously, there are some minerals that have some more critical problems than others. The issue of gold, you put it on the table. Evidently, with COVID and with those prices, there is an incentive, a large incentive, to go and find minerals and to extract it, especially in some situations where also the economic part is affected, and that much of that illegality or of those activities are in some territories that have problems beyond the mining activity or the illegal activity. So we recognize the problem. We are working in that sense, and that's why the goal that we set ourselves was not to make temporary programs, but more like to establish a measure that stays on time and that cares for the specific needs of minors. And
Additional to that, we're working with a great effort by the ministry team is identifying based on information gathered in the past, collected in the past, is where these people are, in which conditions they are. And this is an assistance program where we go and explain to them. First, for many, we've been doing it, and here I stop talking about gold in general. There are many miners who have been doing these activities for a long time, and they're in their lands, and they consider that extracting a mineral is not legal. So it is necessary to go there and explain them the conditions, how the regulatory frame is, but not just to stay there, but to tell them what the choices can be, what their options can be. Because I think in Colombia we have a menu beyond the formalization programs that there have been in the past, which says how the small miner can get into legal status. We need to recognize that around 50% of those illegal operations or extractions are operating on mining titles that have been granted to other people. There is a mechanism that's called formalization subcontract, and it is to start to explain people those possibilities on what the conditions are. It's not to allow them to continue doing the activity as they were doing it before. There are some game rules, but we invite them to this side of the way. And it's a very exhausting process because it's necessary to be present in a territory with we do not only have to access the online tools, but we need to go there, explain to them, be practical with them, assisting them. And I think in Colombia we're complex. It's very complex to explain all this gear, and we're doing it. In addition to that, there is a commitment of authorities of being able to assist in an efficient and fast way, and that's why the institutional strengthening access. In Colombia, in some cases, we have some procedures and processes of more than 10 years that we haven't resolved, some paperwork. So that's why we're aiming to strengthening all of this because we think that the best way of fighting against illegal extraction is to set the conditions, to provide the conditions for people to leave illegality. Even though we're in complex territories, we need to provide them with those opportunities. Not only about police, however, we need to be very clear that we need to comply with the law. We need to obey the law. That's why you've seen, especially in COVID, with that increase that there was specifically in gold mineral, some police controls. Because there, from the Ministry of Mine, we simply grant or provide information and it becomes something about control from a, from a police, police and local authorities. That in Colombia, mayors are the chiefs of police and they have to uh, be focused on that too. So we think that both actions are part of the exercise. From our end, it is to promote legality, is to assist. Of course, our work has increased. Le- le- Illegality has increased in some minerals, of course. It's more difficult now to access territories, of course, but we're not giving up and we're thinking a little bit different and seeing how we can make it. And there's another part of legality, but where accidents have happened is where we have alarms. They're mining title holders, and they've warned us about something that we had identified, but that an effort had been made, but it was not a successful effort. They're mining title holders of small scale that have been supervised, audited, and they had orders of suspension of operations because of safety issues. And in minerals that did not have high prices, coal, but the revenue depending on that activity. It's not about that, but it is because they live out of that, and they had gotten into the mines, and that's where accidents happened. Yes, they were doing an illegal activity, even though they had the permit in practice, but they were not complying with their obligations. And there, their COVID generated some alarm on us, and that's what we're working on in coal and thinking on how we can activate in a fast way some instruments that allow us to support those people with their legal permits to be able to keep it but complying with everything. So there, I think I'm answering something about illegality. Yes, We have challenges. I wouldn't say if it's increased or decreased. We have challenges on how we approach it to support people who have vocation of working with legality, but without losing the access of control for those who do not have the vocation, because they are a lot
Muchas
too.
gracias, Sandra. No sé si
Thank
Secretaría
you,
quiere
Sandra. I don't
agregar
know if
algo.
Secretary wants to contribute with something.
Lo dijo claramente el
No,
señor Ramón.
Mr.
La
Ramon
realidad
said it
argentina
clearly.
es muy
Our reality
diferente.
is very different.
No existe esa realidad, por
That
suerte,
reality does not
en nuestro
exist,
país.
luckily, in our country.
Así que eh, ya lo había advertido
So,
el señor Chamot al preguntar.
Mr. Shamot had warned us
Perfecto.
when
Aprovecho
asking.
para. Hay una pregunta
Perfect.
del
I want
secretario
to
de
take a minute.
Minería de
There's a
La Rioja,
question
Herman
from
Huniken.
my
Ya fue
secretary from
contestada en la
Rioja,
parte de
Erman.
preguntas y respuestas
It's
por parte
answered
de
in the
Sandra,
part
la
of
parte
Q&A
de
by Sandra,
cálculos de regalías.
the
No,
part of
no sé
calculation
si
of royalties.
Sandra
We're not
puede
going to deep dive in that.
seguir
I think
preguntando sobre regalías,
Sandra can
pero está ahí
speak
la
for hours
información y
about royalties,
también
but their
aprovecho para
information is
decir
available,
que
and I
nos
also
están
want to take advantage.
preguntando si vamos a
There are some
dar
people who are
la
asking.
grabación
We're going
con
to
las
send this recording
presentaciones y todas las
along with the
informaciones que
presentations
fueron
and
compartiendo en preguntas y
all
respuestas.
the sources that were
Entiendo que hay una
shared
mano
in the Q&A
levantada
session. I
de
understand that there is a
Alberto
hand
Rojas.
raised again from Alberto Rojas.
Tiene permiso para hablar, a no ser que sea que le
He
esté
has the
pidiendo
floor to
ustedes.
talk unless um, he had raised the hand before. Yes, thank you, Marina, and I'm sorry. It's just that this space is very enriching, especially to hear my counterparty from Colombia, Sandra. And I wanted to take advantage to ask her a last question. That relation of alluvial mining, it's 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 forbidden. Alluvial mining is even considered as a crime, and it takes to imprisonment of a person who does it. In Colombia, I understand it is allowed, and I would like to know if, in the case of Colombia, what scale does it belong to, or is it made on? Is it in subsistence mining, small mining? If it is possible, maybe you could share your experience from Colombia in a brief way, considering that this is a mining that's performed in the Amazon areas or Amazonic areas in Peru. Thank you. Before I answer, I was going to write it. I would like to have your contacts at some point, and I want to understand the formalization process that you're carrying out in Peru, which at some point the reference was made, and I would like to understand it more into detail. Evidently, we have alluvial mining allowed. Here we call it material mining, construction mining, and it's everywhere. That means we have a great mining. I'm gonna give you an example. Mineros S.A. is alluvial gold mining, and it's a serious and large company with high participation in the gold production coming from mining title holders. We have construction materials, which are these um, concrete materials in some areas developed or performed by companies by miners of medium. In some cases, there are some large scale miners, but it belongs more to mining, to medium and small scale mining with all the permits, but they develop it and we call it concrete material. And we have what we call subsistence mining. Is Subsistence mining is not underground, it's not mechanized. Obviously, it cannot be performed in places excludable from mining, especially because of environmental issues. But it is performed in the size of the river because Barraquero is has a pot, a pan, and moving it to do it in the rivers, or the pot of emeralds, they do it with a pan. So it is allowed. It does not have like a specific group dedicated to this. It's everywhere in all the chain, and it's not only in gold but also in construction materials that we call dragging materials. And evidently, that's a decision that has happened in the past or that have been made in the past in Colombia. Is how to establish some more demanding conditions because yes, there is a great part of people working legally with all the permits. But in the past, There have been like those debates if it should be allowed or not. Luckily, illegal mining is not done in the Amazon or in the Amazon because pretty much all that area is environmentally protected. In some points, there is mining activity where there is a high content of miners. When it is done legally, there are traditions, indigenous communities that dedicated themselves to the mining activity in the area of Baupés. But the rest that you're gonna see of activity in the region of the Amazon that's done alluvial most probably is illegal. So much that we're working with UNADOC in identifying those hotspots where alluvial mining is performed in that region to start establish how to approach it.
Muchas gracias, Sandra. Le damos
Thank
la
you very much,
oportunidad al
Sandra. We
secretario
would like to
Hensel
give
si
the
quiere
opportunity to
agregar
Secretary
algo
Hensel
para
if he wants
cerrar.
to um, mention something
¿Quiere
about this
salir
question.
de...?
No tenemos esa realidad tampoco.
We don't have the
Nosotros
reality either.
prácticamente
We pretty much
este, actividad de búsqueda de oro aluvial es
activity
muy
of
pocas las experiencias,
search of alluvial gold is very little.
por lo menos las que yo tengo
At least the ones
conocimiento
that
deben
I
ser
have
dos o
in my
tres.
knowledge should be two or
Mineros
three
está radicado en
miners.
Argentina,
It's
precisamente
established in Argentina.
en la provincia de
So
San Juan,
precisely in San Juan province,
que adquirió un proyecto de
which
oro
acquired a gold
que se
project
llama Gualcamayo.
which is called
Este,
Gualcamayo.
así que conocemos a esa
So we
compañía,
know that company,
pero insisto,
but I insist
minería aluvial es muy poco, muy poco,
alluvial mining is
quizá
very
podríamos
little.
decir
In this
que
we
en
could
algunos
say
casos simplemente
in some
hemos
cases
recibido
we have just
algunas
received
declaraciones de
some
campañas exploratorias,
statements of exploratory initial
pero
campaigns.
no es que somos en ese sentido bastante distintos a la
But in
realidad
that sense,
de
we are very
Colombia y
different
del
from the
Perú.
reality of Colombia
Este,
and from Peru.
además, nosotros no tenemos Amazonia, ¿no?
Besides, we don't have Amazon, anyways.
Tal cual. Bueno, muchas gracias, secretario.
Okay, well,
Vamos
thank you very much,
a dar
Secretary.
cierre
We're gonna
antes de
wrap
dejar a
up
Roberto que cierre
before we let Roberto
desde el IGF.
formally do the
Queremos
closure.
agradecer
From
a
IGF, we wanted
Sandra
to
y
thank
Alberto
Sandra and Alberto
nuevamente
again
promover más intercambio
to
entre los
promote
países,
more
así como
exchange between the
comentaba
countries,
Alberto que
as well
quería,
as what
Sandra que quería
Alberto was
conocer
mentioning.
mutuamente
Alberto and
sus
Sandra said that they wanted
experiencias.
to know
Creo
mutually
que hay mucho
their
para
experiences.
aportarse
I
mutuamente
think
y
there's a
creo que
lot to
tanto
contribute one
tanto
another,
Roberto como nosotros
and I
estamos
know that
dispuestos
Roberto, as well
a ayudarlos
as from IGF, are open to
contactarse
help you
con nosotros.
get in touch
Aprovechamos para
among yourselves.
agradecer a la traducción
So I
a
want to
Walter
thank
Vanegas de
translation Walter
Exhibitors
Vanegas from Al
y
Center
a Stacy, que tanto
and
escucharon su
Stacy.
nombre. Stacy
You
está
heard her name a lot.
ahí atrás
Stacy is
pasando. Thank you,
backstage.
Stacy. No habla en español, así
Thank
que
you,
está
Stacy.
haciendo
She
un
doesn't speak
esfuerzo
Spanish, so she's
sobrehumano
making a great
para
effort
entendernos a todos.
to
Y
understand
yo
us
le
all.
dejo a Roberto que cierre
And I want to
desde
leave
el
it to
IGF y
Roberto.
los
Thank you
esperamos
very
de
much from
vuelta el
IGF,
día
and we
30
will
para que
expect you
tengan
from the
una
20th
mesa
to the
en el
22nd of
Artisanal
October
general.
in our annual general meeting.
Bueno, gracias Marina, gracias a
Okay,
todos.
thank you, Marina. Thank you all.
Realmente esta actividad
Really,
las
this
agradezco en nombre
activity,
del comité
thank you on
coordinador
behalf of the
de
coordinating
CAMMA,
committee or board of
Conferencia
CAMMA,
de
the
Minería,
Conference of the Ministry of
esta
Mining.
segunda
And
experiencia que hemos
well, this second
tenido
experience that we've had
a través de la
through
virtualidad entre IGF
the online mean
y CAMMA
between IGF
realmente
and CAMMA
nos
really
motiva para dar
motivate
continuidad
us or
porque
motivates us to give
periódicamente
continuity because
surgen muchas
I'm afraid that from here there are
vinculaciones,
going to be a lot of
se
new
comparten experiencias
links,
notables
relationships, and experiences and details are going to
ser
be
viendo
shared,
a través del
and
chat
even
cómo se va
seeing through the chat how
compartiendo o intercambiando información.
information is being
Igualmente
shared.
quedamos a disposición de
Likewise,
ustedes
we are
para
at
cualquier
your
cosa
service for
que
anything
necesiten.
that you may
Y
need.
bueno,
And well,
también quiero agradecer
also
a
I want
Olani,
to
al
thank
organismo latinoamericano
Olani,
minería,
the
que nos
Latin American
apoyó
Mining Agency or body,
como
which
Secretaría
supported us
Técnica de
as
CAMMA.
technical secretariat of
Y
CAMMA.
bueno,
And
nos
well,
veremos en un
we'll see each other or one
evento
another. We'll see each other in the next event, and
en un futuro muy próximo.
in the next future. And let's take care of ourselves and see you soon. Thank you.